my 5 people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wine originally first appeared in China in 7000 BCE. It's been used and consumed for thousands of years for different purposes. They used to make perfume out of it. Um, it's been used for medicinal purposes, and of course, the most popular, which is just consuming it regularly. Making wine is very simple, but it requires one staple to keep it all together, and that's sterilization or cleaning your equipment. Main reason for this is because you don't want bacteria that could really throw off the whole interaction between the yeast, and the sugar. You must clean all your equipment with Campden tablets or sodium metabisulfate. Uh, this is what everyone uses. It basically kills all the bacteria in it. Without proper sterilization, your wine could end up being vinegar, which no one wants that. The first step would be to prepare your fruit or your juice. You want to slice it into smaller bits instead of using a blender, because when you use a blender, it makes it taste more like, you can taste the tannin, which is basically the skin of the fruits. The second step would be to clean all your equipment. Again, you basically want to soak it with Campden tablets and water. The third step would be to add fruit to your container and Campden tablets again to sterilize, and whatever else you wanted to use. You could use, people use wood chips, for example, to add flavor. Some people actually add fruit skins to it. There's a bunch of stuff you can add. The next step is the most important. This is when you add the yeast to the mixture. This will basically start fermentation. Fermentation, in this case, is basically when yeast take the sugars from the fruit, and fermentation is basically they turn it into the alcohol in the wine. There's different types of yeast too. There's wine yeast. There's champagne yeast. There's also yeast for making beer. They all result in different alcohol percentages. Um, Basically, if you have a certain type of yeast, you can't just add more sugar, and they're not going to just take more sugar and it'll be higher in alcohol. It's not how it works. It's just different types of yeast. Fermentation has to take place somewhere that's 70 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit. If the temperature is too high or too low, it'll kill the yeast. You have a bubbler when you're making wine on top, and you fill it halfway with water. And when you see it bubbling, that means the yeast are, they're doing fermentation. So they're releasing carbon dioxide, so you can see it bubbling. So you know when fermentation has started, and hopefully when it ends. Fermentation usually takes 5 to 7 days. The next step would be to siphon off the wine from a sediment. The sediment could be fruit pieces, wood chips, dead yeast mostly. Anything you added in the first part before you add the yeast. After that, you should let it sit for 5 to 6 weeks after you siphon it off to let the wine clear out. Wine is basically a long waiting game, but you just have to make sure that it's sterile and everything's clean. Your next step would be to sanitize your bottles and your corks. Basically, you boil your corks to make sure they're sanitized. After your wine's done fermenting, and if you would want it sweeter, you can add sugar or honey or any type of sweetener that you would want. But after you add this sweetener, you need to add potassium sorbate, because this would kill all the yeast in it. If you add sugar again, then the yeast are going to start fermenting again, and once you bottle it, the wine bottles are going to pop. Your last step would be to bottle your wine and enjoy, and of course, share with your friends.
Absolutely.
Are you done?
Here's my 5 people. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Salute.
Salud.